From RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
Good morning and thank you for joining us on Indianapolis This Week. I'm Rafael Sanchez. We begin today with a growing scandal involving school grades. This week, the big announcement at the State Board of Education for Superintendent Glenda Ritz that the department has evidence of manipulation that resulted in changed grades.
My office has had concerns about inconsistencies with the A to F system, reported by schools through appeals and communications to our department. In light of recent developments, the department began a probe into the A to F data system. Upon our preliminary examination, the department has verified that there was manipulation of calculation categories, and the department has also determined there are broader issues that must be examined. It is premature to discuss any findings of our examination at this time in light of the external review of the A to F accountability program ordered by Senator Long and Speaker Bosma, and in light of other potential investigations, including the Indiana Inspector General. In essence, there's going to be probably some discrepancies between what was actually done and what you actually approved in rule. And so we are going to have to wrestle with how we go forward in doing the 2012-13 calculations, and that is most troublesome for both the department and the State Board of Education.
So we start this morning with our political insiders, Democrat Lara Beck and Republican Jennifer Hollowell. What grade do you give this issue? I mean, at this point, this has gone out of control. Teachers are saying, how do we know if our schools are an A or an F?
Well, I mean, first I would say incomplete. I think the least credible source in this entire thing is clearly Glenda Ritz, who has
I'm sorry.
two missions. One, to tarnish the name of Tony Bennett, and two, to do away with the whole accountability system that was put in place.
Do you really believe that?
I do, absolutely.
really believe that?
I mean, you
yes.
honestly believe that? Okay.
Absolutely.
And so what do you think of that?
Well, what I think is that the emails speak for themselves. I mean, I know you guys have probably talked ad nauseum about this topic. The emails speak for itself. And that at no time in those emails, at no time has anyone who's been on the email chain that we saw in the Associated Press articles and the follow-up articles, has no time has anyone said, wait a minute, let's just go with what we've got. These are the rules we created. Let's not manipulate them. This is what we have. But what they did was they changed the rules to suit their narrative. And so I don't understand the whole Glenda Ritz attack, because Glenda Ritz has her hands full. I don't know why Glenda Ritz would want to be spending her time going after Tony Bennett. She won. What's the purpose of doing that?
If not, then why has she done that?
She hasn't done it.
The entire time she's been in office.
Well, he hasn't been terribly gracious to her whenever there's interviews there.
Let's focus back on my questions. There are a number of investigations now that have been launched, right? We have the Speaker of the House.
Right. It's bipartisan.
Bipartisan. The Senate Pro Tem also wants an investigation. We have the Department of Education and maybe the Inspector General.
That Tony Bennett asked for.
Right.
That he asked for.
Why would you immediately ask for an investigation if you had done something wrong?
In fact, Dr. Bennett said that he was fearless, right? To be fair to Dr. Bennett, he's fearless of what the outcome will be. Should he be fearless? I mean, or will something come out of this investigation that will show that something wrong was done?
I don't think he would ask for an investigation if he thought it was going to create more problems for him. Why would he do that? I think that the point is more information is better. Looking at the whole picture. Anyone who's ever managed a large operation and built a system like this with formulas has found that there are errors along the way, right? When you build big systems, big formulas, you have to tweak along the way.
Tony
Has
Bennett.
anyone, and I believe that that is what happened in this case. And we're only talking about one school when it didn't impact just one school, it impacted 12 schools. No one's talking about the other 12 schools. Why? Because they weren't supporters of Dr. Bennett. Has anyone said that the Crystal House Academy is not an A school? I haven't heard a Democrat say and insist that it's not an A school. Why? Because I think it is an A school.
So do you believe that, hold on, do you believe that Glenda Ritz is being selective as to the information that's being put out by the department?
I believe that it is interesting that her office has spent, I don't know how many months, scouring through Dr. Tony Bennett's emails. How else does this come about? And I think selectively finding things that look bad and then bringing them to light. And I think that everyone in the State House, I mean, you cannot You cannot
Do you
deny
see
that
that-
everyone thinks that there is.
No, I don't see it that
that
way at
this is
all.
a
What's happened is
concerted effort.
that this is the very first time in years that reporters who have asked for Freedom of Information Act, information under the Freedom of Information Act, that they've gotten their requests. Governor Daniels and Tony Bennett, they ignored those requests for years, or they just would put them off. So again,
I don't think that's
Tony
true.
Bennett sat and looked at people in the eye and said, Crystal House is an A school. He looked at all of his detractors and used them as an example. In his own emails, he says, under the rules we put together, they are not an A school anymore. So either
Crystal
I'm
House
lying.
is an
He
A
said
school.
either I'm
Do you-
lying
Listen,
or we
so
need
if-
to
if
do
I'm-
this.
if I'm
It's not
watching
an A
this-
school.
No,
It's
this
a
is not
flaw
the
in
issue.
the formula.
The
When
issue
you
is
build
Tony
a
Bennett changed the
complicated
narrative to suit his
formula.
needs.
If I watch all this stuff, you guys going at each other on this issue, and I'm a parent, I'm thinking,
I'm too.
You're parents, you know.
We are.
Is my school an A or an F? That's all I care about. I could
Yeah,
care less
you do.
about Glenda Ritz or Tony Bennett or the governor, or I care about the school that has a letter grade on it that may also impact my property
Yes.
tax values, right? So whatever's happening at the Capitol, I really don't care about. Do we need to throw out the system?
No,
Can I say
see,
something
you want to know how your
about the
school
system?
does.
I do, listen, but I do want to know how, yes, as a parent, I want to know how my school is
Glenda
doing.
Ritz wants to do away
But-
with the A through
I
F
wanna know
system.
how
That's
my
her
school-
motivation.
I want to
Answer
know
my
how.
question. Is this system something that can be fixed, or do we need to come up with something that everyone understands?
Here's what I think we
think you
need to
can
do.
improve it.
Here's what I think we need to do.
Are you going to answer my question?
What I think we need to do, but here's where I'm saying, yeah,
Okay.
I am.
Okay.
I think we need to take a really good hard look at the system.
Okay.
We've got 3 parallel investigations going
Okay.
on right now.
Okay.
Regardless of how you feel about it, regardless of how you feel about Tony Bennett, Reform, Glenda Ritz, we all, at the end of the day, want our kids to go to school and get the best education
Sure.
possible. So that's what we want to know. So we need to find out what happened. Were there other schools that were impacted by this? Because if there were other schools that were impacted like this, like the case of, there were 2 IPS schools
Sure.
that fell under the same fell under the same umbrella as Crystal House.
Those
So-
schools had been failing for
but-
years and years.
But
Do we keep the system or not? Do we keep it? Listen, I want...
but let's
I want
go back and see what happened.
Keep the system. Clearly go through, we'll see the results of all these investigations. And the legislature was already constantly looking at ways to improve the system, and you can improve the system. And I think that that's, in part, what they were doing in this case, and I think that you can continue to tweak it. But parents deserve to know how their school grades, how it matches up to other schools.
There's been a debate about the position of superintendent of public instruction. Should it be elected or should it be chosen by the governor? Does this situation give credence to either one of those arguments? Should Governor Pence now say, look, I want to pick my own person in the next election cycle, or does the public need to have an independent elected person?
I think it should be appointed. I've always thought it should be appointed.
You're doing a lot of laughing today, so,
and the
so you don't
reason
take
is-
Sorry, I just think it's
You know,
funny. Of course they should be
my
appointed
opinion
because the Democrat
doesn't
has the
change
office.
because of this, but I think it should be appointed because the governor is held accountable for education in the state. Those are the kinds of measurements that people will use in a governor's campaign to point to success or failure, improvement, right? And so if you're going to be held accountable for it, I think you should be able to appoint someone whose philosophy aligns with yours and demonstrate this is what we can do and be measured that way.
Last word, should the governor do more? And should the person be appointed by the governor the next time, or freely elected?
I think it goes, though, to a larger issue in education. I mean, if you look at urban areas, for example, and urban schools, you know, that also leads to the question, should a mayor be in charge of public education? We've got several large urban centers in Indiana.
But my question,
should that would kind of fall in there?
Lamara, should Governor Pence
I'm okay
pick the
with that,
person,
too.
I
or
think-
should be freely elected?
I think that I'm a believer in elections.
Okay.
And I think that with this example, the Tony Bennett Glenda Ritz election is one of those areas where people speak and people go to the polls
Most
and vote.
states are
We have
And
had
so
the-
it's
and
different
they
in that
I want
way.
to thank you for
But
a
I'm a
robust
believer in
discussion.
I'm a believer in
Our
elections.
debate will continue in the green room, and you can always watch our Capitol Watch blog, or you can find their opinions on the IndyChannel.com. Ladies, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next
Absolutely.
time.
Thank
When
you.
we come back, the roads to the future in central Indiana. We get new information about the plans for several major construction projects, including one to shut down the South Split. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. We turn our focus now to the highways in central Indiana and several major projects on the horizon, including one next month that will shut down part of the South Split. Joining us now is Nathan Riggs with the Indiana Department of Transportation. He's the Media Relations Director, and we're going to talk about the projects in Marion in Hamilton counties that will be coming up on the horizon. The big one in Marion County, of course, is the Virginia Avenue Bridge, the one on the I-65, I-70 South Split. We keep seeing bridges hitting that bridge. How are we going to fix that?
Well, what we've tried to do in the past is increase the signage and increase awareness for the trucks with oversized loads that are coming through that route that shouldn't be taking the downtown route. They should be taking I-465 with the proper permits. But so far we haven't been able to be successful with those efforts. So basically what we're doing is lowering the pavement under those bridges to increase the clearances of 7 bridges around the South Split area.
Now that project begins September the 3rd, for folks to be very specific, so circle that on your calendar, September the 3rd. How big will this be? I mean, how will this look for the person trying to come into the city?
This is a big deal. It's going to impact tens of thousands of motorists each and every day. Through traffic traveling on I-65 and I-70 through downtown, the I-465 on the west side and south side will be used as the detour. It only adds about 2 or 3 miles, so it's not a real big consequence for through traffic. But of course we've got the commuters that are coming each and every day that definitely need to plan ahead for this closure, plan a little bit of extra time and possibly a different route.
You put some electronic signs around the city warning the truck drivers. Have you seen a decrease since putting up those signs of trucks not hitting the bridges downtown?
Well, we do have a camera installed on the southbound, on the Virginia Avenue overpass over southbound I-65, I-70, and we do receive a notification each and every time that camera is triggered by a bridge strike or a close call. We have seen a decrease in the number of those notifications since we did install the portable message boards, as well as using the overhead dynamic message signs to alert truck drivers with loads of 13.6 and greater to use I-465.
Now, those cameras you have on the bridges are not meant to be like a red camera, but have you been able to identify who's driving those trucks, and have you fined anyone? Has anyone been cited with a penalty for doing what they've done? Well,
INDOT, it really isn't a law enforcement agency, and that's not the intention of the camera. We really installed the camera as a way to assess and monitor the situation. We knew that this bridge was getting struck because from time to time law enforcement would contact us and say we've got a truck here, the bridge has been struck, and we would send out an inspector each and every time there was a crash. So we installed the cameras to get a better handle on how often this was happening and how often this was being hit without us being notified. So just to get a better assessment of the situation.
And I don't mean to push you on this, but I will. I mean, is there any thought in the future that if you have projects like this and you install a camera that can actually capture someone violating the rules, that you'll go back and say, you damage it, you pay for it?
Well, I don't know if we would collaborate with law enforcement in the future on a project like that, but I would say there might be the potential for that.
Let's talk about some other major projects that you're looking at. One of them, of course, going on right now at I-69, sort of the bottleneck in that area. The construction is underway right now. What can we expect on the I-69 corridor?
Well, right now we've got 2 contracts active on I-69 between 465 and State Road 37. The interchange improvement project there at exit 205, 116th Street, 37, started last spring with improvements to the northbound side. Originally, it was supposed to be completed by the end of 2012. That didn't happen. The contractor ran a little bit behind, but they just did open up the northbound side, the northbound improvements, which include 2 lanes to both 116th Street and State Road 37 to a brand new flyover. So that's 2 lanes all the way from 69 up to 126th Street, as well as improving the configuration within the ramp lane so that a brand new entrance ramp from 116th Street to eliminate that weaving of traffic within the ramp lanes.
And I'm sure a lot of folks will appreciate when that project is done. It's an $11 million project. Another long-term project you're looking at in 2015 is US 31 in Hamilton County. How much of that work is already being done, and how soon will you hope to get that project completed?
The contract that we expect for the Carmel segment that we just announced will begin as early as this fall. We haven't quite hashed out the exact schedule with the contractor, but we have already completed, as part of the freeway upgrade of US 31 between 465 and State Road 38, we've already completed the State Road 38 interchange, as well as the interchange there at 146th Street in Keystone. Currently, we're working north of 146th up to just south of 169th Street, and that includes a closure of a 161st for a roundabout interchange, what you'd see almost on Keystone, that type of interchange. But we also have a contract to include the Westfield segment, which will include State Road 32, a single point interchange at that location, and that will go under construction next year.
A lot of ongoing projects, and it goes to show that we really are the crossroads of America. I mean, we get a lot of traffic coming from every corner of the country comes through Indiana.
That's right. I mean, we have been blessed with an influx of transportation improvement funding with the lease of the toll road. And we're taking that and really investing in the infrastructure for safety, mobility, and economic growth.
Nathan, thank you so much. Hey, if my GPS goes down, can we just call you? Can we just bring you along?
You can call me anytime.
Because you seem to know every project in the state. Of course, we'll have all this information on our website, theindychannel.com. Nathan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Come back again, please. A new look at the homelessness in Indiana when Indianapolis This Week returns. Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. We have new numbers on homelessness in our state. The report issued just this week from the state puts that number at 6,064 people. That's a 3% decrease from 2012. And take note of this number. Of those who are homeless, more than 1,500 are Hoosier children. We're joined now by Lori Dimmick, Community Services Director at the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us. The number, let's first start with the number, staggering, the number of young children, Hoosier children, that are homeless.
Yes. And majority of them are in households. There are about 30 or so that are on their own, minors who are just kind of just away from their family during conflict or something. But yeah, majority of them are in households.
The numbers show in some regard that there's been a decrease, but the numbers also show that more homeless people are living together. So what do we make of the number? I mean, is it really down, or is it the fact that people are not reporting it as much?
Well, I think there is a decrease in homelessness overall with persons. We've seen a decrease from 2010. There's a 5% decrease since then. So we have shown a decrease over time of persons homeless. I do think that more people are kind of living together. When they leave their home, they go to families. But when that support system breaks down, they either end up on the streets or at shelter.
Listen, I'm from New York City originally, so when I saw the numbers that you reported they were down, I thought to myself, well, you know, I drive down Meridian Street, I'm on the Circle, I'll go by the library. There's a lot of homeless people there. They're not in front of the Mission. How could the numbers be down with the economy being so bad?
Right.
How did you find there were less homeless people on our city streets?
Well, first off, we look at the whole state. I know CHIP, Coalition for Housing Improvement Program, they actually look at just in Indianapolis, but we look at the whole state. So as a whole state, they definitely are down a small, about 3%. So I think part of the issues that we found is we're increasing permanent supportive housing. We're increasing units into our community where these persons can go, like homeless veterans that we have increased up to 60-some units just in this past year to put them in housing to address issues like the disability of mental illness, substance abuse. So I think even though you're seeing them still in the streets, I still think we are housing them even though the economy is down.
But as a matter of public policy, is the concern that if the trumpet says homelessness is down, that lawmakers will say, well, if the numbers are down, then there's no need for more funding. You're doing a great job, and so this issue is solved. Let's move on to the next big project.
Yeah, but 3% isn't a lot if you think about it over a 3 or 4 year time. That really is not significant to me. I think we need to more have a significant impact. And the fact that we have more veterans coming out of wars, we have still issues with the housing and economy, the unemployment rate is still high. I think it still needs to be an issue and it needs to be addressed. I mean, because 3% is not significant to us.
But you see sort of the challenge there.
Yes.
On one hand, you say the numbers are down. A lawmaker may say, well, if they're down, then we can cut funding for that program. But you're saying no.
No, because these programs need to continue. The housing that we provide to persons who are chronically homeless, the ones who keep coming back to homelessness. Yeah, they leave momentarily, but they keep coming back. And some of the counts, and we may have the person in there has been counted all 3 years. because they keep rotating back into homelessness. So if we don't address those issues, it's causing them to go back into going back into homelessness, then we're never going to resolve the issue. And they do want to end homelessness, and they do want to end chronic homelessness, and they do want to end veterans being homeless.
And how do you ensure retention in the programs? Because I would imagine that someone that's been living on the street for a long period of time may find it difficult to get into the whole cycle of paying rent and paying their light bill. I mean, so are you finding that the retention, that if we're spending a lot of money on these programs, that people are staying with the programs, or are you finding that you have to provide remediation on how to teach people on how to live in a home or an apartment?
Well, yes, and I don't think it's a lot of money. I think it's an appropriate type of subsidy, and how they stay in the program is through supportive services, case management, counseling. Yeah, and you're right. If they don't provide with some kind of service to address their issues or what got them there, people don't go from home to a house they had a mortgage on all the way to homelessness like in a short amount of time. It doesn't work that way. It's a breakdown of a lot of systems that get them to the streets, the ones you see on the corner. So it's consistent providing the services over time. And I don't think it's a lot of money. I think it's an appropriate amount of money to be spent.
The mayor, has often said about the panhandlers that those are not homeless people, that those are people that are being shipped in from different parts of the state to make money off the streets. Do you see it that way? Are the folks that are asking people for money, and we're having problems with tourists saying, hey, this is becoming a problem, are those really homeless people, or are those people being hired to raise money on city streets, acting as homeless?
Well, I know that CHIP has addressed that issue here in Indianapolis, and they have said that many of them are not homeless. They're not showing up at the missions. They park there, that it's a job for them, and then they go home. I don't know whether they're raising money for somebody else. It may be for their own household. But are they homeless in the sense, are they living on the streets? CHIP has made it clear that they don't think all of them are. There are some people out there who are struggling with mental health issues, and the streets is not an appropriate place to address that issue.
Sure, and I know that these numbers will obviously be very eye-opening, and hopefully will be used for good as public policy holders see what's happening in our state. I want to thank you for joining us this morning. Please come back, and we appreciate your work. Indianapolis This Week returns right after this. I'm Rafael Sanchez. Thank you for watching Indianapolis This Week. We'll see you next week. And go out and enjoy the Indiana State Fair.